على سيدنا محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا. اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأجرنا من شرور أنفسنا. I begin in the name of Allah, God Almighty, the one, the only. And I invoke His peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and upon his companions, and upon his families, and upon those who follow them in righteousness until the day of reckoning. And then I made three specific du'as. So we'll break it down one more time for you all. I said, Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha. Oh Allah, grant our nafs. Nafs, mistranslated 90% of the time as soul. It's not the soul. The soul is, in Arabic, is what? The ruh. The nafs is your conscience, your consciousness, yourself, your being. What makes you hungry and thirsty and happy and sad, right? And what pulls you and what pushes you. That's your nafs. So I said, oh Allah, grant our nafs your taqwa, your heightened state of awareness. وَزَكِّهَا أَنْتَ خَيْرُ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. And purify it, for you are its best purifier. أَنْتَ وَلِيُّهَا وَمَوْلَاهَا. You are indeed its true friend, and you are in protector, and you are indeed its true Lord. And then the other dua was, Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una. Oh Allah, teach us, which you all should learn and practice a lot, is Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una. Oh Allah, teach us that which benefits us. Wanfa'na bima 'allamtana, and benefit us from that which you teach us. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that is of no benefit to you or to I at any time. And the third one was, Allahumma alhimna marashida umurina. Oh Allah, guide us or provide us a vision towards the best of our affairs. Especially when you're trying to pick that major, right, and you're in your third year, right? وَأَجِرْنَا مِنْ شُرُورِ أَنفُسِنَا, and protect us from any evil tendencies that may reside within our nafs. So how about a big ameen for that? Ameen. Well, my name is Alauddin Alauddin, and so when you saw it on the poster, it wasn't misspelled, it wasn't a mistake. Most people have something to break the ice, and when they open up, and my name is my icebreaker. Why do I have the same first and last name? It's a long story, but the short version that my friends have all agreed on is that when I was born, my mom and dad took one look at me and said, he can't handle more than one name. We have to keep it simple for him. So alhamdulillah, but generally in Columbus, Brother Alauddin I'm usually brothers with people from ages of like 8 or 9 or 12 or all the way until 65, and until they become my son's friends. I have a 17-year-old son, he's somewhere here today, and once they become my son's friend, then I get called the worst of slander, right? For a 40-year-old man, you get called what? Uncle, right? And so therein begins the demise. What do? I work with young people, I work with couples, and I'm a professional life coach. I do other things. I do coaching and mentoring. I do strategic planning for companies, for churches, mosques, that kind of stuff. But largely what is relevant to you and for you to understand the context from where I come, I speak to young people and I help them build pieces of their lives, to young Muslim professionals. As a matter of fact, initially most of my customers were non-Muslims. And we help them build pieces of their lives, understand what the big chunks of their lives are and how to put the pieces in the right place, so that you're 21 and suddenly you're working and you're going to work, you're graduating, going to work, coming home, looking to get married, you do this, you move, you want that house with the white picket fence out in New Albany or whatever, and then suddenly you look back and 20 years have gone by. And you say, where did my life go? And what was it, what did it mean? So to avoid that scenario, I work with young people and try to kind of map their lives for them and put pieces in place for them. So that's my context. When I speak to you, of course it's from a religious context, but it's largely from the context and experience of having worked with a lot of people and having been blessed with seeing the good and the bad. Now about today, when I saw the announcement, I saw it on Facebook, I had to go back and find the address, right, and to plug it in or to give to my son for the GPS. And I read the announcement, and I saw that 117 people said yes. 107. Now I know that a Facebook yes is not really a yes, right? A Facebook yes is if I have nothing better to do at that time, right? Although a no most often is almost definitely a no. So do we have 117 people here today? We have 117 young people on a Friday night sitting here, right? Yeah. Giving up whatever else they have, whatever other options they had, to be here and listen essentially to a 42-year-old guy talk about love, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all bless each and every one of you with love in this world. Say Ameen. And love and blessings and peace and harmony in the hereafter. Say Ameen. Ameen. All right. So I saw that, and at first I said, you know, we invite you to kick off the fall quarter. And I'm like, okay, guest speaker, Alauddin Alauddin. I'm like, you know, okay. Then I keep going, and it says, you'll also meet the board, you know, the new board, and each board member will introduce themselves. And then I'm like, okay, maybe now if I was 17, 18, 19, a student, I'm now interested maybe in coming and seeing who the board is. And then, but then they get to the end and it says, and free food. And I said, oh, that explains the 117 yeses. So inshallah, I hope today you'll get more than free food, a little bit of context, a little bit of stuff to kind of think about for yourselves, inshallah. Let me say this, there's a disclaimer that I start with on this topic, that nothing in our existence is absolute. You know the 80-20 rule? Everybody's heard it by now. Everything applies to about 80% of the people, and 20% it doesn't apply. Well, it's more than that. But just nothing in this world, nothing in our existence is absolute. Everything changes, everything is temporary, except for one, right? The one thing that is absolute, the one thing that never changes, the one thing that is always was, always is, and always will be, is our Lord. And it's just a matter of our faith in that Lord and how our actions and whether our actions guide our faith. So just keep that in mind, that some of the things may not, you'll say, oh, you know, I have this second cousin, you know, my aunt's second cousin on her mother's side is this and this, and it doesn't apply to them. Yeah, there will be someone that some of these things don't apply, but hopefully they'll apply to most of us here. All right, so to begin, I wanted to ask, I was actually hoping for a kind of a, last time we did this, it was really neat, we were in a classroom, so there was like this board that was about, you know, literally 15 feet wide. So I was able to do a lot more drawing. I hope you kind of bear with me, and we'll make do with what we have here. But the first question I want to ask you all is, what is love? Can somebody tell me what love is? Because that's part of the topic, right? It says you talk about love, and then the effects of dating, and the unfulfilled expectations of love before marriage. You know what? I have to give you all credit. And when I say you all, you know, it's this thing about, you know, you guys get branded a lot of things, particularly, I mean, for those of you that aren't Muslim, you know, and you're, by the way, how many of you consider yourself Muslim? Raise your hand. All right, an overwhelming majority of, how many of you consider yourself something other than Muslim? Whatever that may be. So you're all Muslim. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. You couldn't bring a single non-Muslim friend here. Oh, there you go.
I don't subscribe to a religion as of right now.
Welcome. All right, good deal. Well, there you go. Okay, good. I have at least one person. All right. So, what is, okay, the question, well, I was saying that, you know, what I ascribe, because I'm going to use terms and I need to know whether they'll be understood. Like, how many of you know the term ABCD? Raise your hand. No, there's a term, there's an acronym ABCD. See, oh yeah, you all don't know. All right. But I tell you what, the one thing that you all never get enough credit for, and when I say you all, I mean, you know, Muslim, you know, kids, you know, born and raised Muslim in this country. You don't get enough credit for your creativity when it comes to topics, when it comes to bylines, punchlines, and creating posters. Really, we ought to, every mosque in America ought to contract that out to their youth group or certainly to their MSA. So, back to my question, what is love? Can somebody, anyone brave enough to go first? None of it. No one wants to go? What is love? What? Just go. Okay, it's caring for someone. Anybody else? On this side, what is love? Wow. Yeah, back there.
The attraction between two people.
The attraction between two people, thank you. We're building now. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of move back and forth. So, okay, the attraction between two people. They're really good. Ooh. How many of you disagree with that? Or you're just saying, I wouldn't have said that, but yeah, young lady. Okay, love is an affection that is very strong and powerful. Thank you.
In some cases, it's abstract.
In some cases, it's abstract. What are you majoring in? All right. All right. Anybody else? Love is a 4-letter word. If I hear you, you're busted. Because there's no penalties for that, though. Yes, young lady.
I mean, when I think of love, I think of respect, mutual respect.
Okay. Well, you think of mutual respect. Okay. Now, what is dating? You're the one that brought the apple to the teacher every day in school, weren't you? Did you ever hear that? He said, what is dating? He said, haram. All right. You have a career in Saudi Arabia, really. Alhamdulillah. Okay, no, but in the context of love, I mean, in the world that you live in, the society that you live in, what is dating? Where does it fit in this picture called love, in this wonderful, strong attraction that you feel for someone?
Dating doesn't necessarily mean love.
Dating doesn't mean love, okay?
Dating means experimenting.
Dating means, see, we have, what is your major? I could have predicted that. Dating means the experiment to find out whether you're in love or not. Correct? Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, that's very good.
I mean, we're just discussing. We think dating's like...
You had to discuss what is dating.
Yeah, well, like dating's like window shopping.
You know, one would argue that what's wrong with window shopping? Isn't Naseeb.com or Shadi.com essentially window shopping? In a way, that's window shopping. What were the difference, though? But thank you for sharing that. Oh, yes.
I think dating is getting to know someone that happens to include physical aspects.
Dating is getting to know someone that happens to include physical aspects. How about this? What if I said to you all that, there's love, and we define this love, right? And then I said to you all, dating is the mechanism through which you find that love in our society. Dating is the mechanism through which you find. Would you all generally agree with that? Yeah. I mean, mostly. Again, there's the 20% or the 10% that's like, people date for other reasons and they have no interest in love and whatever. I mean, there's that option, and unfortunately, that option is growing. I mean, I read this kind of stuff, and it's amazing statistically when they survey college students, the term hooking up, right? It was amazing. By the way, guys always wanted to hook up. It's not a new thing. A guy always wants to hook up. It's only after he hooks up that he realizes that he can no longer maybe live without that person, or that person is ready. They always wanted. What's alarming in United States, US campuses today is more and more girls want to just hook up. They date actually not to look for love, because they're like, okay, I know I have to go to grad school, right? I'm at OSU for 4 years. Then I don't know where I'm going to go. Do I really want to get serious with this guy? And besides, look at his GPA. which is kind of unfortunate, and that percentage tends to grow in the society that you all live in the cultures that you all live in, that percent. But generally, by and large, we always held that dating was sort of the mechanism to find love. Okay. So now the next question then is, what's the ideal, and bear with me here, what's the ideal process of finding that love? So here's a guy, I'm gonna have to go north-south here for you. There's a boy, and okay, I know men, yes? Young men. Boy, girl. There you go. You need a boy, you need a girl. And then they kinda, sort of, where do they meet? They're holding a spot for you at some madrasa in Afghanistan right now. You're so right, you're so good to go. Anyway, okay. So where do these people generally meet? Where? Starbucks? Where is that Starbucks? No, I mean for the first time, where do you see this guy? Where do you see this girl? That you want at school? Class? School? Okay. So this boy meets girl scenario starts somewhere, and they do this. They meet, and then they decide that they want to. This guy works up the courage, or the girl works up the courage, or whatever, or they have mutual friends, right? You kind of hang out. There are 3 girls, 3 guys, and at some point they zero in. One zeroes in on the other, and then they agree on a date. So then they say, okay, we're gonna date. We're going to find out if this is my soulmate, right? At least in theory, or at least that's what you tell the girl, right? Or at least, you know, but here, you're gonna find out if this person is your soulmate. So you go on your first date, right? What happens before you go on the first date? What? Yeah, just speak up, man. What happens? You know what they say? They say alignment in my business, in coaching. Alignment is when your thoughts are aligned with your words, and your words are aligned with your actions. Then you have achieved, harmony or peace with yourself. So before the first date, what happens? Yes. You might exchange numbers, okay. So let's do that. You got the phone numbers. What else? Like, I mean, the day before the date, or 2 hours before the date, what are you doing? You're dressing up, right? There's a lot of grooming going on, right? No matter how gross the guy otherwise is, or his apartment is, or whatever, that day, I mean, he's even moved up from the Walmart brand onto some name brand also in terms of cologne, right? Finally, right? So there's a lot of grooming going on. So they dress their best, at their best. And then they go out on this date, correct? And then they meet. What's a good first date place these days? He said Taco Bell. And I would venture that'd be a good last date also. My colleagues, they call it Taco Hell. But anyway, so they go somewhere. And what's the world these days? I mean, I'm not just because you're answering the questions doesn't mean it's you, but you study with people, you dorm with people, you know what's going on. So does the guy still pay on the first date? Does he pay the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
How many guys say the guys pay the whole thing? All right. Now, how many of you say that you split it, the girls and the guys split it? You will learn a lot about each other today, won't you? No, I'm kidding. The folks that answer are just the ones that are brave enough to say what others are thinking, but they're not going to answer. So okay. So there's this first date, and it goes really well. And then does that happen still, the movie scene, the movie kind of scene, the guy walks the girl back to her dorm or car or whatever, right? And then there's that moment or whatever, and then there's this moment of istighfar and tasbih. Don't start laughing at this moment. No. But anyway, so you have this first date, and regardless of what happens at that car, at the doorstep or whatever, there's a decision to be made, right? What is that decision? A second date.
Or next.
Or I can eat Taco Bell by myself. And then, okay, so then the second date rolls around, and what generally happens? Generally the same thing happens, doesn't it? They go back up, dress their best, groom, maybe, I don't know if people still buy flowers or not, what they do. Is it completely out? Huh? Nobody buys flowers anymore? Do they do they text you the picture of a flower? It's an education for me too. So the cycle gets repeated. So there's the second and the third, and you go somewhere nice, and then the quality of where you go as you become more and more familiar with each other. But see, suppose you did this a few times. The do loop, right? Any IT majors here? Raise your hand if you're IT of any or software, computer information systems. MashaAllah. Everybody else is going to be unemployed? I'm kidding. All right. But if you do this long enough, okay, so you do this a second or a third, then there's some milestone point that happens, right? You got this guy and this girl who were dating, they get to this one point. And what is that point? What happens? You've dated 2 times, 3 times. Then what? What? You put a ring on her. MashaAllah. See, it's part of it is sitting on this end of the room too, right? Put a ring on her. Yeah. but there is this inevitable, inevitable question that you get to. And statistically in America, it used to be, I mean, I don't know what it is now, but a couple of years ago, the studies were on campuses, it was by the third date. If by the third date you didn't hop into bed together, there was no fourth date. Okay? I mean, go home and go ask your classmates. I mean, ask people, and sometimes it's good to have other people with other scope or frame of references. But I'm just telling you what, what studies say, what statistics say. They say about by the third, right after the third. And then you know what happens after that? Decision point number 2. More, do loop, or that's the end, right? Again, you get to that point. Now, we're drawing this really nice, we're drawing like kind of the ideal scenario. That this happened, and you moved all the way down, and at some point you become committed to each other, right? You did this, you did the do loop back and forth, and then you kind of, came like this, up and down, and then you worked your way down, and at some point they decide that we're really like, this is it, this is my soulmate, right? Isn't that the decision? This is my soulmate. So then you're kind of exclusive, all right, with, whatever, and then that kind of lasts a few, anywhere from a couple of years to how many years? To what? How many years? Like a couple is committed to each other. So a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Anyone knows a couple, 5 years not married? A lifetime? I mean, you all are laughing. There are people that have been together for 20 years. I mean, there are women that have said, I've been waiting 15 years for him to propose to us. 10 years, we've raised no children. 9 is the highest you've ever gone with, okay? And we'll rely on your expertise in this case. So anywhere from 2 to 9, I was dead serious. Yeah, you think 9 is the highest that you're aware of, correct? Yeah, there you go. So there's 9 years, 2 to 9 years go by, and then you have the fairy tale wedding, right? Marriage. And it's all beautiful and everything, And then what happens in America generally? After a marriage, well, here's one cheerful bunch of people. Yeah, well, actually, even kids aren't a given. But let's just say kids, and then life. Then somewhere around here, somewhere in this vicinity, is when real life hits. Somewhere in this vicinity, when you're in this neighborhood, either you're exclusive or you're married. Then suddenly other things start to matter, like your job, right? The economy, correct? These things start to influence. Ask anyone that's married. The economy, the Tea Party, right? You start to kind of, other things that are going on around the world and stuff starts. And suddenly it's not just that I'm going to dress my best, I'm going to have the best kind of breath mint, I'm going to do all of those things, I'm going to look my best. We're going to do this, we're going to make our way back and spend more and more time together, right? Especially since on campus where mom and dad are mostly footing the bill, right? For your time sort of together. But then you get to this point. And then like someone said, actually, what's the stat on marriages today in America? 50%. In how long? 50% in the first year. 50% divorce rate in the United States in the first year. Like within 1 year. So again, there's a 50% chance, which if you saw the promo, who's seen the promo for that movie? I don't remember. Is it 50-50? Yeah. The guy with the cancer, he's dying, really nice guy from Third Rock from the Sun. There you go. It's a good show, Third Rock from the Sun. Anyway, but if you ever, by the way, again, it comes back, when I study human beings, that show was amazing about studying human beings. If you ever want to go back and see what the things we do that are really odd, who better than people from outer space to tell us? So you do that 50%, okay? Then 50% are divorced, and then 50% are married. And that's the ultimate goal. No matter where someone starts with here, for most people, they want to be down here at the end, through this whole process, okay? And by the way, we said, ooh, 50% divorce rate in America. I coach a lot of young couples. I actually mediate between couples whose marriages are in difficulty. Believe me, the percentage of young Muslims raised in this country, their marriages, isn't a whole lot better than the national average. There are a lot of young Muslims getting divorced too. And we'll talk some other day when you're ready to get married. We'll talk about, you know, what you could do kind of to help yourself there statistically. So don't like look and say, oh, it's their problem. No, 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 no. It's a problem, it's our problem, and it's our society's problem. And where your parents' generation was more protected from it, you all are actually much more vulnerable to this whole thing. So that therein lies your sort of ideal situation. Do you all see any kind of traps in this whole equation? Do you all see possibilities where things can go wrong in this process? Where can something go wrong in this whole thing?
Everywhere.
Where? Can something go wrong here? Huh? Do you all have stats on OSU date rate? What the percentages are? I don't know what it is for OSU, but I can promise you it happens here, right? Do you all have stats on what can happen in you know, how many, well, it sort of falls under date rate too, but how many people? It's amazing. There's an amazing statistic about the percentage of women that who face violence, sexual violence, and it's almost in like a 70% are people they know. People they know. So all of you, you have your mace and you have your cell phone ready, and some of you maybe even packing heat or something in your little purse, right? SubhanAllah, it is an enormous percentage that comes from someone you know. But here's the thing. Here, I mean, but that's the norm. I mean, here, that's a risk you run there. Here's a risk you run there. When you're intimate with somebody, what risks do you run? STDs, thank you. What else? Yeah, unwanted pregnancy, yeah. What else? What? No, I didn't hear. What was heartbreak, thank you. Yeah, what's wrong with heartbreak? And to me, actually, I saw heartbreak before I thought STDs are unwanted pregnancies, right? So these are sort of some of the risks you run. So now, if this is love, and then this is the dating process, and by the way, invariably, you know, particularly for women, and that's why I'm sort of glad there are many more females here than males, but particularly for you all, I mean for women, every girl eventually wants to get there. I don't care if she wants to win the Nobel Prize, but that's where she wants to get at the end. But, but it's unfortunate that all the risks in the process are also weighted so heavily against the girl. It's amazing. And I'm talking about modern American society. I mean, all of this stuff is weighted against you more so than the guy. I mean, it's not a walk in the park for the guy. You know, maybe a couple of bankruptcies involved, right? You know, a couple of credit cards, or maxed out or whatever. But most of the risk is shared on this side. Okay. So now here's the flip side of the question: is love haram in Islam? No. I said, what is love? And somebody said haram. He was joking. But, I mean, wouldn't you, and I mean, aren't there mosques, forget mosques in Saudi Arabia, aren't there mosques in America where if you asked about love, they'd say it's haram? Wouldn't they say that? People would say that. Probably get promoted too, right? Okay, so if love is not haram, then why? I mean, again, this is where it helps to ask a non-Muslim. When you say Islam and you think love, do you ever put the two together? Right? And the guy will be like horrified. Yeah. The guy, right? Do you always, have you ever kind of heard, I'm sorry, you're the only one. So, have you ever kind of heard of the context of love in Islam?
Not really.
Thank you. I'll slip you $2 on the way out. Right, that's what I was hoping you would say. SubhanAllah, I want you all, for many of you, you're kind of new, I mean, and by the way, I'll digress a little bit. Stick to your MSA. I grew up in a Muslim family. I memorized or I learned Quran with mashayikh in Kuwait and in India. And I was able to spend time. My dad would take me, anytime there was a scholar, a Muslim scholar that came anywhere near our mosque, he would take us there and he would require us to spend time there. And yet I tell you, the single biggest influence in my life for me wanting to be an active, public, confident American Muslim was my MSA. Was my MSA. They didn't pay me to say this. But I'm telling you, you got to stick with it. And you have to mold it into what you want it to be for you. But you have to stick with it. You can't kind of say, okay, I'll show up when there's pizza and then, I'll do my thing. You gotta stick with it because really, truly, you all have the option here. Most of you are choosing your faith while you're here on campus. That's one of the things that campus does for you. It kind of allows your mind, and you take in a lot more stuff. But those of you that make the conscious choice now on campus that you want to be Muslim and you want to be a practicing Muslim, not just a parental Muslim, then that will stay with you the rest of your lives. So and your biggest ally in that is your MSA. If they don't fulfill that need that you have, you need to take them to task. But you can't step aside. You can't kind of tear yourself away from your MSA. So keep that in mind. Okay, so now, talking about love as a concept in Islam. How many of you, if I said to you the Prophet ﷺ actually looked at a man and a woman, right? And he said, isn't it amazing the love that he has for her and the disdain that she has for him? Anybody believe that's true?
Yeah.
Who did? You guys believe it? Brave enough to raise your hand? Yeah, this is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He was standing in the marketplace, and we know the names of the people, Mughith and Barira, right? They were married. They were married first. They were married. And then he kind of acted up, and he was like all cool and whatever, and then at some point she decided she didn't want to be married to him anymore. And she divorced him. And when she divorced him, he realized really truly how much he was attached to her. How much emotionally he was vested, to the point where on the streets of Medina, when she would walk, he would be walking 10 steps behind her crying. Oh. Some things never change. Alhamdulillah. And they should not change. That's part of what makes men love women, whether they like to admit it or not. But so what did I mean? I mean that this emotional tug of the heart that a woman feels that is completely devoid of money, power, status. When a touch of the heart is what you feel in its honesty and its purity, that's one of the most beautiful things about a woman. And it is sad that women today are trying to suppress that and try to be more like men. When you have something that is like really extra special, that makes you, in many instances, a better manager, a better leader, a better CEO, because you at the end of the day, there's something that tugs in you that allows you to see something beyond what the numeric value is or what the cost is or what, you know what I mean, what all that is. So that's what I meant. But anyway, back to that. So he says to her, he says to his companion, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, look how amazing it is. How much he loves her and how much she kind of disdains him. Until the point where he had pity for him, for Mughith, and he calls this young woman. He calls, who is, by the way, the freed slave of his wife Aisha, radiallahu anha. Right? That's what they did. People would send them, there was slavery at that time, largely due to wars and because the rest of the world practiced slavery. But what our Prophet ﷺ did was anytime somebody he inherited or somebody sent him a slave, he would free them right away and he'd say, now you can stay and work with me or serve me, or you can leave, you're free, whatever, do whatever you want. And then his wives used to do the same thing. So she was a woman. Why did I say that though? Because I want to establish for you that this was a woman that societally was not wealthy, was not powerful, was not from a strong family. She was actually very poor, right? And she was a freed slave girl. So he calls her, and then she comes to him and he says to her, look how much he loves you. Why do you not take him back? Why do you not take him back? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And look how they were compared to how we are. She says to him, O Prophet of Allah, is that your command or is that a suggestion? Do you understand? See, today it's the other way for us. For us, we know our Prophet commands us to do certain things. And we say, is that in my interest or is that not in my interest? Right? That's what we do. That's what we do. We say, is that going to make me look better? Is that going to make me look cool? Or is that going to embarrass me? Then I'm going to decide whether I follow the command of my Prophet, peace be upon him, or not. But they were different. You know, if he said, yes, this is my command, they don't care. The rest of it doesn't matter. So she says to him, is that your command? Or is that like a suggestion? Is that something that you're offering? And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says to her, no. He says, I am but saying this out of sympathy for him. This is not a command. You do what you want to do. So when people tell you today, this is 1432 years ago, right? When people tell you today that a Muslim woman has no voice, not shame on them for saying it, but shame on us for not knowing. that our women had voices when Europe at that time was debating, right? The Vatican was debating whether a woman had a soul or not. Whether she was actually also a human being or not, like a man is. Or was she a lesser being? And he was saying to her, no, 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 it's just out of his love for you that I asked. I'm just interceding, trying to see if I can get this couple back together. SubhanAllah. Such is the celebration of love between a man and a woman. I mean, I have plenty of other examples. Not only, by the way, all of you above 18, anyone younger than 18 here? How much younger? 17? Okay, your innocence is already gone anyway. Yeah. In terms of what you know, right? In terms of what you've seen and what you've heard. Not only is romance and love celebrated, like recognized, not only is it halal in Islam, it's actually celebrated in Islam. Ali radiallahu anhu, I don't know the exact, I don't have the, because I don't mess with Arabic, so unless I have the actual text, I don't read it out to people. There's this poem that he wrote. By the way, just to give you all some background, their skill, the Meccans, the people of Arabia at that time, was poetry. That's how they were. You know, you talk about spoken word today and how cool people are now, you know, they can, you know, Buna Muhammad, may Allah bless him and protect him. How many know Buna? Buna is an awesome guy. Buna is a true gift, one of the gifts. It's like Nouman Ali Khan is a gift to Muslims in the US. He's also a gift to Muslims in the US. But now we think this is cool. That was their thing. They would see something and words of poetry would come out, would flow from their mouth. And it is amazing. There is poetry. Ali radiallahu anhu sees his wife Fatima use the miswak. How many of you know the miswak, right? You know the miswak, right? The little brush that, again, that is sunnah, but it doesn't fit our cool profiles. I've never seen a single Facebook profile where somebody have a miswak in his mouth, right? But she is, you know, using the miswak, the root of the Arab tree. And he utters 3 or 4 verses on the spot, saying, oh, how I long to be that stick. How I long to be that stick. Or what I wouldn't give to be that stick, and what I would do to prevent anyone else from being that stick with which you brush it. SubhanAllah. He's a Khalifa. He's the guy who slept in the bed of the Prophet on the night that he migrated, right? Is he more righteous or less righteous than you and I? And he's the blood relative. He's the cousin of the Prophet, peace be upon him. That was one. There's another one, you know, Atiqa, the wife of the son Abdullah bin Abu Bakr. Reams, I mean pages of poetry that she wrote of love to her husband at that time. So love in our religion is actually celebrated. It's actually celebrated. Not only that, subhanAllah, at that time, you know, and that's why I asked you how, you know, make sure everybody's alright, but even sexuality. Sexuality between a husband and a wife, right? Being sexual is celebrated in Islam. It's not forbidden, it's nothing. There are like a couple of things that are off the books, right? That you all know, right? 2 things are forbidden, almost everything else is permissible. And there is an effort made that you should make the effort to keep that going. To keep sort of the juice flowing. To keep that bond going in our religion. And there are very specific, you know, and there are examples of that, and there are instances of that in our life. So then, if I'm saying to you that love is celebrated, if I'm actually saying to you even the sexual nature of a human being is celebrated in Islam, then why is this problematic for a Muslim? Why is this problematic for a Muslim? Can anybody tell me? Somebody said something. Yes?
It's not a healthy process.
It's not a healthy process. This one is not a healthy process, okay? Anybody else? Thank you.
There are no restrictions after marriage.
There are no...
Before.
Okay. The sister said there are no restrictions after the marriage, but there are definitely before. Yes? Anybody else? Yeah, I mean, thank you. Essentially, that's it. When we say it is celebrated, I also add after that, I said it is celebrated, but it is regulated. It is celebrated, but it is regulated. And I have non-Muslim friends, by the way, who tell me, he said, you know, they say, I really like your religion. That's okay, that's great. But you have too many rules. Right? You have too many rules. And I don't dispute that. I don't think we have, actually, if Christians practice Christianity and Jews practice Judaism, I don't think we have far more rules than people of other faiths. I just think that we are still at a process where we're not willing to let go of our rules. We're not willing. I know Orthodox Jews in Columbus, Ohio, that live close enough to the synagogue, they don't drive on Saturdays. They don't. They have a separate meat and dairy kitchen, right? There are people that, you know that there are denominations of the Jewish church where the woman is not allowed to touch the Torah. A woman is not allowed to touch the Torah. You get grief about being a Muslim woman. SubhanAllah. But there are people who practice. So there are things in their practices. But for us, it is regulated. Now, let's do, we've done the sort of the love flow chart, right? And we've said that the ideal one was where, and this happened, by the way, lest any of you walk away saying, oh, this guy was bad-mouthed. No, I used to, when I was 25 years old and I worked in the state of Kentucky, I worked with women and I worked with men who were like 50 years old at that time, and they had actually met in high school, they dated, they did not have sex, they did get married, and they've been married for 30, 35 years. I'm not telling you that this ideal process just never works where you can start from here and then you make it down here and then you stay and you're happily married. I'm not telling you that that doesn't happen. And don't walk around telling people that that doesn't happen. That happens. That happens. But what I'm telling you is the majority of what the environment that you live in, this is the process that's going on, right? Which you all know better than I do and you agree with. Okay, so there's the real phone. And like the young sister said, the problem is not love. The problem is the process through which people try to seek love. The problem is the process through which people, you try to seek love. And we already talked about what the outcomes are. The outcome is heartbreak. I'll give you a simple example. If some of you sitting there saying, yeah, I hear him, blah, 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 I understand his English, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. Go to people you know, okay? Go to, people in the society that you live in who are married, right? 25, 30 years old, 35 years old. Ask them, how many of them married the first person that they fell in love with? Or how many of them married the first person they dated? How many of them? I tell you what, I'm shameless enough. I'm doing research. I ask people this all the time. When I have colleagues, I drive somewhere to the end to Ashtabula, Ohio, in one corner of the world. Anybody been to Ashtabula, Ohio?
Yeah.
You've been there?
Yeah.
That may explain everything, Farid.
Yeah.
After all these years. What were you doing in Ashtabula, Ohio?
For work.
For work. Oh, DOT work, transportation. Yeah, the only people that go there are the transportation people and the sewage people.
Yep.
Right? It's a 4-hour drive. No, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong. I'm just saying it's 4 hours. You wouldn't think that you would drive 4 hours and still be in Ohio. You would be if you went to Ashtabula. Actually, further out from Ashtabula is Pontiac. It's the northeastern tip of Ohio. It's 4.5 hours away. Okay? So, what did I say before I got to the Ashtabula part? Yeah, I said you can ask people, how many people of the people that are outside? And they look all fabulous, and they look great, and they drive these wonderful cars, and they're very eloquent, they're more eloquent than you and I are. They dress really well, right? Ask them, how many people actually married the first person they dated? I would venture to say next to zero. How many of them actually married the first person they slept with? I would venture to say next to zero. Just the system is not, it doesn't make them good or bad people. Don't get me wrong. The system's not set up for that. The system's set up for the opposite. And after you survive this entire, the whole minefield, I'll give you an example, Jimbo. Jimbo was my neighbor in Kentucky. Well, they live downstairs. God, that just feeds into the stereotype, doesn't it? I did not mean for that to happen. His name was Jimbo, right? My wife is here. She'll attest. Jimbo, Jimbo was this really, really cute 5-year-old kid who lived downstairs from us. And we'd come and go, and he'd be riding his bike, and we'd say, hey, Jimbo, and we'd talk. And then one day, Jimbo was dressed in a tux. One day, Jimbo was dressed in they'd been our neighbors for about 5 years. One day, Jimbo was dressed in a tux. And I said, what's going on, Jimbo? And he said, my mom and dad are getting married. My mom and dad are getting married. You know what I say? Alhamdulillah. Right? That's good. They're getting married. So literally like 2 months or 3 months later, I'm seeing that Jimbo is outside and he's standing with some boxes, and there's a moving truck there, and his parents are bringing down boxes. And I said, hey Jimbo, where are you guys moving? Where are you guys moving? Is your family moving somewhere else? And did you buy a house? And he was like, no, my mom and dad got a divorce. When they were not married, they were together for at least the 5 years that we knew Jimbo. Right? And then they got married, and within 2 months, they ended up on the wrong side of the 50%. But yet we walk around and we think that this is really, you know, when my mom and dad say this, or when my religion says this or that, I'm the one being deprived. They're really having a blast. Life is really great for them. Well, I tell you what, life is not great for Jimbo, right? He was ending up losing, you know, the experience of living with his father. So now you will still have the honest question that many of you will not ask, but you probably will think, if it's not right, then why does it feel so right? Why does everybody want to do it? Why do we kind of, you know what I mean? Like if there wasn't this something holding you back, that's what you would do. Well, and why do I feel deprived? I feel like my faith, you know, I always, when my kids were younger, and I'll let you all into a secret that I've already taught your parents, so here's how you can kind of be one up on them. I always tell parents that when your child is presented with a pepperoni pizza, pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they say. Do they say, no, I'm sorry, I won't have any, I can't eat that? Or do they say, I don't want any, I choose not to eat that? That's a very good barometer that I teach parents to, as they're raising their children, to know what kind of Muslim children they're raising. You understand what I'm saying? And it's you know, we call it neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Anybody study NLP or interested in NLP at all? You should check it out sometime. It's very, very fascinating how the use of words influences how we think and how we perceive things. And that's a very important distinction to make, right? The difference between the two kids is what? One says it in a way that they feel deprived, right? The other one says it in a way that they feel assertive. I'm asserting what I believe in. So my kid, my son, now he's older, but my son and my daughter, they'd come to us and they'd say, hey, you know, can you write us a note, you know, Eid, and we're not supposed to go to school or whatever, you know, or Ramadan, I don't want to go to the cafeteria for lunch, it's Ramadan, right? I can go to the office and go to the library. I would say to them, no, you go talk to your guidance counselor. Why does it make a difference? You know why it makes a difference? When I go talk to his guidance counselor, what does the guidance counselor think? Oh, here's this backward immigrant, you know, dad, imposing his will on this poor child, you know, and he's going to have to starve himself. How horrific that is. And on the contrary, when you are 9 years old, or you are 10 years old, or you are 12 years old, and you go to your guidance counselor, and you say to them, you know, this month is coming up, it's called Ramadan, and I don't eat or drink during that month, so I won't be eating lunch over here. Would you mind if instead of going to the cafeteria, I go and help out at the office instead? Or I go and help out at the library instead? You know what they think then? They think, oh, look at this kid. How much conviction do they have? That's the difference. And that's the difference in the approach. The simple reason why it feels so enticing are two things. Okay? Two things. It's based on the environment that you are immersed in, and it's based on the activities that you're engaged in. How you perceive something, whether you feel deprived or whether you feel empowered, depends on these two things. The environment that you're immersed in and the activities that you're engaged in. And they will lead to one of two ways. They will either lead to piety, self-control, selflessness, or they will lead to indulgence or to decadence, right? Or what they call hedonism, right? As an extreme. People always say, oh, you know, the enemy of Christianity is Islam. The enemy of Islam is Christianity. The enemy of this is that. The Islam is not the enemy of any religion. And there's no other religion specifically that is the enemy of Islam. The enemy of all people of faith and values, is the force of indulgence and decadence that exists in this world. The forces of indulgence and decadence, where not what you have is never good enough. Give you all a simple example. How many know Hugh Grant? Right? Good job. I know, I've watched it, and it's, I'll blame it on my wife. Anyone with an English accent? You know, it's like a romantic movie. I've watched it, thanks to my wife. So Pierce Brosnan, you know, Hugh Grant. Anyway, Hugh Grant, about 10 years ago, got arrested. Anybody know that? How many of you know he got arrested? Do you know what he got arrested for? Does anybody know?
As a prostitute.
Yes, for soliciting a prostitute. He got arrested in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. He was soliciting a prostitute. And one would say, look, this guy is a mega star in Hollywood. I'm just making, I'm making a point, okay? One of the things that we do as Muslims is we don't judge other people. And the reason we don't judge, which unfortunately you would think that Muslims are constantly in the business of judging others, aren't we? You know? But we don't judge, and the reason we don't judge other people, by the way, is because we fear Allah's judgment. We don't judge others because we fear Allah's judgment. That the ones that if we start to judge others, then what are we going to do when He judges us? What we do is we find out what Allah wants us to do and we try to do it as best as we can. And when others don't do that, we try to verify for ourselves why we do what we do, and we try to share why this is the better way. But we don't judge. But anyway, he gets arrested for soliciting, right? 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not the punchline. Not that he's the most successful, he's very successful, he's a comedian, he's a very handsome man, very wealthy, living in Beverly Hills, wherever, and close to Hollywood and all that. That was not the kicker. You know who the kicker is? You know who he was married to at that time? Who? Does anybody know? Who was Hugh Grant married to at that time?
Elizabeth Hurley? I don't know that.
Good job! Ladies and gentlemen, for $2,000 and istighfar upon you. He was married to Elizabeth Hurley, who at that time was the Revlon cover girl. Considered the most, that was the prize, right? There are women, and there are beautiful women, and then there are endorsements, and there's the ultimate endorsement. And the ultimate endorsement is the cosmetics business, and the ultimate in the cosmetics business is the Revlon cover girl. She was the reigning Revlon cover girl at that time. So when I say decadence is the opposite of piety, what I mean is that sense that nothing is good enough. Something else is always better. It's not like if I get this job, I'm done. There will be something else. It's not like if I get this model car, if I get married to this man or this woman, there'll always be something else. That is the opposite of piety. Now we can't, in the environment that we live in, and you all live in, you can't eliminate that. Honestly, you can't. Like some other sheikh with a longer beard and shorter pants would come and tell you, you should just make istighfar, and it's not going to, you should take care of it, you should kill this thing. Because I actually talk to young people, I can tell you that you can't completely eliminate that, but you can mitigate that. You can try to manage that. And you can manage that again by reversing that. You know what did I say? What are the two biggest factors?